Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 6:31, so I'm calling the county board meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Kibler. Here. Maxwell. Here. McGuire. Here. Michaels. Here. Mitchell. Quisenberry. Rosales.
Here.
Schrader. Here. Schwartz. Shore. Here. Weibel. Here. Alex. Anderson. Here. Berkson. Here. Carter. Here. Cowart. Esri.
Here.
Harper. Here. Harrison.
Here.
Hartke.
Here.
Jay. Here. Petrie.
Present, thank you very much. Our quorum is present. This evening, the reading was to be done by Ms. Cowart, and she is not able to attend the meeting. So I am taking her place, and since I have spent a great deal of time recently driving through our wonderful farmland, especially up in the Joe Davis County area where it's undulating and absolutely beautiful, I think this quote from Wendell Berry is very appropriate. We have neglected the truth that a good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order and a kind of artist. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on July 23rd, 2015, 6:30 p.m. in the Loud Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I move to suspend the board rules to allow items coming directly to the board under new business to be considered at the appropriate point in the agenda.
Mr. Esri, thank you very much. Any questions on this motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right, thank you. Motion to accept the agenda. Mr. Shore, a second, please. All right, Mr. Kibler, I want to notify you that we will be pulling item 10 from the agenda. We will not have a report from the auditor this evening. Are there any other corrections for the agenda? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda for this evening and the addendum indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you very much. I will go through, for the record, a reading of our many upcoming meetings in the month of August. First, we begin on the 4th of August with the facilities meeting at 6:30 here in the Shields Room. Next, on the 6th of August, is the Environment and Land Use Committee meeting, again at 6:30. And then on Friday morning, the 7th of August, the Highway Committee will be meeting at 9 a.m. in the Highway Maintenance Building. The Committee of the Whole will be meeting on the 11th of August at 6:30 in the Shields Room, and the County Board will be meeting on the 20th of August, again at 6:30 in the Shields Room. That meeting is going to be followed the next week by 3 budget hearing meetings on the 24th, 25th, and 26th of August. And those 3 meetings start at 6 p.m. and will be held in the Shields Room. And those are meetings for the public to attend, but there will be no public input during those hearings. Public input will be taken the following month in September for any items and issues connected with the 2016 budget. Next, we're going to move to public participation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you mention the meeting on the 18th?
No, because it hasn't been approved yet.
Okay,
I will remind at
Okay,
the end.
thank you.
Thank you for that point. We're moving to public participation. So far, I see another slip coming up, 3 slips for public participation. A reminder of our rules, each individual has 5 minutes with a total of 60 minutes set for public participation for the evening. And we provide a countdown clock for all those speaking, so you have some idea when your 5 minutes are up. So Joyce Hudson, you are just here in case there's questions during the time that we discuss that a zoning amendment. Is that accurate? Thank you very much. Mr. Reverend Larry Lewis. Right there.
Use that microphone.
My name is Reverend Larry Lewis. I'm the pastor of My name is Reverend Larry Lewis. I'm the pastor of Bethel AME Church of Champaign, Illinois. It's the oldest minority church in Champaign County, 153 years, 2 years older than the University of Illinois. So we have long-standing roots in this community. I'm here to address the county board in regard to the establishment of a task force to settle the racial issues in this town. We have seen racial unrest throughout this land. And I remember not too long ago attending a racial justice meeting where we were dealing with the issue in Ferguson, Missouri. And people from Champaign said, this is so far removed from Champaign, it would never happen in a city like this. And I said, you know, what we need to understand is that we have a Ferguson in each and every one of our backyards that is ready to explode because the conditions are the same all over this country, and we need to do something about it. When I was very instrumental with the UCB2B project, and working with that project, I found out that the city of Champaign, the city of Urbana, as well as the University of Illinois, had no minority hiring goal. And I wonder why there was such a disparity with the black population in regards to jobs in this community. I also found out that when it came to the educational system, the dropout rate was higher. Those who were referred for detention was higher for the same offense. So there appears to be a problem with unjust sentencing across the board. Not too long ago, I think it was reported in the paper, where you had the stop and seizure, that it showed a pattern of racial profiling. So we do have some problems that exist in this community. And I would like for this community to be more proactive rather than reactive. We don't want to see crime and violence that is explode in our community because the people do not feel that there is a sense of justice. So I believe that it would not do any harm whatsoever to create a task force to look into these issues. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Reverend Lewis. Next is Evelyn Reynolds.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Reynolds, and I'm here representing the community group Build Programs, Not Jails. I also teach at Parkland College. In 2013, the Community Justice Task Force was employed to find alternatives to incarceration. And one of the recommendations that that group came up with was to form a racial justice task force. And I'll read their wording here in the recommendation. To identify measures needed to address the disproportionate number of African Americans in the county jail. African Americans comprise 12.7% of the population and 54.7% of those in jail. A task force is needed to examine data in more detail, evaluate contributing factors and differential impact of arrests, incarceration, and sentencing on African American and low-income populations. This was the recommendation of a task force that was employed to find alternatives to incarceration, and this is one of the things that they came up with. They asked for the development of a racial justice task force, and this was in 2013. And we sit here in 2015 to ask again for the creation of a racial justice task force. A group of people that could include criminal justice representatives, health professionals, educators, community members, to really look at not only the racial disparities that exist in the jail population, because they do exist and that is well documented, but also racial disparities in Champaign County in general, because there are also lots of pieces of information that talks about, kind of disparities in our school systems, municipal offenses, and we actually have a sheet that I can pass along or send to the board that gives kind of an overview of racial disparity in Champaign County. And I'll just read a few of these points here. And in 2013, 67.8% of those admitted to state prisons from Champaign County were Black. 65.5% of those on parole from the Illinois Department of Corrections were Black. If we look at municipal offenses from 2007 to 2011, 88% of jaywalking arrests in Champaign were of Black people. 91% of jaywalking arrests in Urbana were of Black people. If we look at some data on poverty, 38.2% of Black people in Champaign County live below the poverty line. The unemployment rate of African Americans in Champaign County is 17.4%. Education, 75% of all suspensions in Champaign District 4 schools from 2012 to 2015, and African Americans made up 75% of those suspensions, and 65.8% of all suspensions in Urbana District, 116 schools, and those are Black students as well. And the data just goes on and on with these various areas of our county in which racial disparities have been found. And now is the time to act. Hopefully we don't have to come back next year and the year after and the year after, and we will, to advocate for the same thing, for the development of a racial justice task force, to have some sort of acknowledgement that there is a problem, first and foremost, but also that there's a problem with race, and also that there's a problem with race that involves Black people. We need to come to terms with that and figure out a way to deal with that. And you, as the county board, have the power to affect change, to be proactive. We don't want to have more instances of violence and massacres. And we're not immune to that here. Fortunately, it hasn't happened, to the level that it's happened in other parts of the country yet, but we're not immune to those things. Let's address this and let's be real. Let's have some real conversations about race. This is something that we can do that can bring about some positive change in our community. And so please work with us. Let us work with you. Let's have this discussion. Let's acknowledge that there's a problem, develop this racial justice task force, and move forward, because the time is now. We have no other time. We can't wait any longer. I consider what's happened nationally a state of emergency. I think that we should act like it's a state of emergency. It's not okay that these killings of Black people are happening. It's not okay that churches, are being shot up. That's not okay. Black lives do matter. Let's be real about this. Let's be honest. Let's engage in a discussion and just see where it goes. See what we can do. Let's develop this racial justice task force, and I'm pleading with you. I'm not just asking you. I'm pleading with you because it's so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Martell Miller.
How you doing, county board members? I've been coming to this county board probably more than 10 years, probably since I've been involved in what I've been involved in this community, trying to make this community better. So it's been since 2004. And when I started, it started with racial profiling. And that was just how I just looked at just racial profiling. Now I look at it in a broader view. You got racial profiling, you got education, you got job issues, you got poverty issues. It's just so many issues that if you say poor, poverty, it's black. It's a lot of poverty in black, you know, it's a lot of unemployment. I see 17% here that it says unemployment. That comes from the unemployment office. That's who reports. But I was told a few years back it was 40% unemployment in the black community, really 46%. And if you go down to the ages that you can begin work from 15 to 16, it's 60% unemployment in our community. And we got to have a racial justice committee come out the county board. You know, y'all cover the whole county. And I'm not pleading with you. I think it's y'all duty to have this done. Not only to have, I think we need a whole climate study. You know, not just the task force, the climate study, the condition of African-American people in Champaign County. And I think we can make this city and county the best county if we all work together and deal with the problems, especially with the unemployment, the poverty, and the what goes on with our courthouse and our jails. And for me to see that we send 67% of the people go to prison from here as African-American, and we less than 17% of the people in Champaign, that I'd be everybody concerned to sitting around this table here, all these tables, because that shows that the law has not been equally put on the people equally. And my friend tell me, is equal application of the law should be put out. And so we got to look at the state's attorney office, we got to look at the police departments from the county sheriff office to our city police. So it ought to be not only the county board, it ought to be the city of Champaign, the University of Illinois, RAND 2, all of them ought to take part on this study. If we want to make a change, we got to first get started with something. And this will be a start, but to start something without finish, just to have a study and then don't put down solutions and then put down time goals what we want to happen. And I'm gonna tell you something I've been doing for the last probably maybe 9 months. I look at all the construction going around in this community. We got $1.3 billion worth of construction. And you can go to all these construction sites and you may find one black. Out of all that money, you looked at $1 million don't reach the African-American community. But we get a police task force for guns, get a drug task force for drugs, but we don't get a task force for jobs. How you gonna change the community if you don't allow them to have jobs? And when I look at one of our institutions here, I call it the university, and I look at it as institutionalized racism for what they do here. And we need to deal with that part of it too. If they would hire right, that could change some things. And as the county board and the things that goes on in the university, y'all ought to demand that they hire to the percentage of the people of this county. It should be 17% of black people working for the University of Illinois. It should not be 816 African Americans employed on the University of Illinois. And I'm saying this because I call that the big monster. If they would hire right, who wouldn't not have to hire right? If the main employer of Champaign County hire right, that means Carl would have to hire right, all the cities would have to hire right, everybody hire right. And that could really help with the poverty situation and then get the cost of living, get the wage where it's up to $10 an hour, maybe $15 an hour. Because I think 3 years ago, I was told that it'd take $11.40 an hour cost of living of Champaign County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Aaron Ammons.
Good evening, County Board. So I came to speak to the topic of the Racial Justice Task Force, and I'm trying to wear the hat of the member, of the facilitator of the North End Breakfast Club. However, I know that it's hard for me to get out from under my hat as an alderman as well. So I understand that there were some concerns or some issues raised about how or what a racial justice task force would look like, who would be the players or who would be the partners at the table. I certainly have no problem having a discussion with my colleagues at the City of Urbana about something similar, and I think, or being a part of a racial justice task force. We have already started that process with the study of the IDOT traffic statistics and things like that. So we have a task force that has already looked at that. And of course, there's some findings in there that, of course, what we already knew and what the African-American community has been saying for years, that we're certainly having there's a disparate impact on our community as it relates to stops and traffic data. And it would be no secret to most of you and most of the community that that impact is also as in places like what Martell said, where jobs are, construction industry. We have a wonderful event coming up on July 29th called Pathway to Apprenticeship, so that we can work with the building trades to increase diversity in the building trades as well. So we're not just coming to the county board or to one particular entity saying that you are the sole bearer and you're responsible for this situation that we find ourselves in. I think that we're all trying to create an atmosphere where everybody can come to the table and say, okay, what part or what role do we play in this, and how can we address this issue that is obviously here for us all to address. So the task force itself, I certainly would love to see it come into fruition and to go to my colleagues and let's talk about how to make it happen. And certainly I would be happy to talk to the folks in Champaign. The point that was raised from my understanding is that the county isn't the only player in this regard. And so we would have to have the cities at the table as well. That's understandable, and I don't think that we have a problem doing that. I would ask that we not go down a path that says, well, if the other people don't join, then I won't join, okay? Because that means that that would send a different message to me and other individuals who are very concerned about this. Because if we're all saying that there's a role that we all have in this and a part that we play, then certainly each entity would step up to the plate and say, well, let me do what I can about the part that I play in this issue. So, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say more than that, but I'm certainly willing to go talk to my colleagues about this. I do believe that there's some traction already there. And if there are any questions or concerns that you might have, I'm open to hearing any of those if you want to ask now or later. So, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ammons. Carol Ammons.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for setting this forum so people could come and express their concern and experience about this subject. I have had the pleasure of serving on this board. I have certainly had the pleasure of serving on the city council, and now the pleasure to serve at the state level. And in all of those capacities, we as elected officials are tasked with the responsibility to bring equity and justice to our various bodies in our cities and county. Of course, you all probably have already received the sheet that I received when I came in the door with the racial disparity for Champaign County. I served on the Criminal Justice Task Force here as a member of the task force that looked at the needs of the jail. During that process, it was really evident to me that we were the end, meaning the county was the end of a continuous system by the time people get to the county jail level. But we were as critical in that process as the courts are critical, as the police departments are critical. And as it was stated by Mr. Ammons, it's important for us to establish a task force to identify where most of our resources are going and why. It is not a secret in this body or any other body that there's a disparity in stops, there's a disparity in incarceration and sentencing. All of that has been researched right here at the University of Illinois and available for any person who's seeking rudimentary information on the subject. But what has come as a result of the state service is that the governor established a criminal justice task force at the state level to examine some of the very same things that we're talking about here at the county level. For what purpose do we do that? We do that at the state level so that we can identify why we spend $6 to $8 of every taxpayer's penny on the criminal justice system as opposed to spending it on the educational system at the state level. We also impact local governments with tax freezes, budget problems. As you all know this story, I could go on forever. But what this will do for Champaign County, with its partners in the city of Urbana, with its partners in the city of Champaign, is really take the lead to look at it at the local level. What we take at the state level does not always apply to what's happening at the local level. It gives us an umbrella, but we're not able to see what's underneath it. And so to establish a racial justice task force says not that we're racist, which most people like to go down that path, but it says there's an impact on a certain group of people more than another, and we need to look at why that's the case. We also want to look at what policies are written and established that might be feeding to that outcome. Not that this body makes up all of those policies, but we are, of course, at the end of the process. I just came back from Arlington Heights literally just a few minutes ago as I walked in this door. And I went to Arlington Heights, which is not in my district, which we don't have any employees at the Arlington International Racetrack. But there's a big economic engine in Arlington Park that is possible that we will lose if the state doesn't do something to save that industry. And so some attention has to go there because it is a particular kind of work that is helping the economy, some 30,000 jobs as a result of that industry. In this case, we have the reverse. We have a system that is impacting certain communities that take away 30,000 job opportunities from a community that happens to be African American in Champaign County. We want to look at that. And so I've come straight from off the highway to say I support you in your efforts. I hope that we can work together to see what we can bring to bear to help with this, and that if you establish this, I'm willing to serve. And I know many in this audience are also willing to serve. And so please call upon me if the board so choose to go in this direction. And I truly thank each of you for your service because I do know how hard it is. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ammons. Are there any other people who would like to speak this evening?
You can come on up if you'd like.
Good evening. I didn't really prepare, but my name is Eldris Melinda Carr. I'm the president of the Minister Alliance of Champaign, Urbana, and Vicinity. And I was here maybe a year ago and talked about this issue. And I had gone on a trip to Minnesota and gotten a magazine. And the magazine was talking about Saint Sabrina in Chicago, where they invested in the same thing that's going on here, the crime, invested in the community, and with the violence and everything that's going on. They invested in the gangs, they invested in the ones who were going through various situations to provide jobs, to provide programs where they could help the people in the community. And so we're here today talking about a similar situation. And we're supporting the racial task force and the idea of coming up with a task force. And I wanted to say that the members who serve on this task force, it's important that they be courageous men and women who are not afraid to challenge the status quo. Because for change to occur, people on the committee need to be able to step outside sometimes. And I've been in that position before, and it's so important with this issue because it impacts the masses of our community and African American as well as other racial groups. And we want to really affect change so that we can provide reform so that the different ones who we are, I think I talked about housing, for example, the ex-felons, when they come back from prison, they have nowhere to live. So providing housing for them so they can have hope when they come back because they've spent their time, they've gone through whatever programs in the prison, but they're coming back wanting to have a changed life. And so what can we do to help them? We need this task force to be a courageous group of people, not just a committee put together. We've seen so many of those. And we need people courageously serving and ready to put their necks on the line. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you for allowing us this time.
Thank you, Elderess Carr. Next is Ms. Underwood.
Madam Chair, and to the county board, and to everyone in the audience, I just want to say, I'm not going to take too much time. I don't feel very well, but I'm here because I'm concerned. I've talked to a number of people about tonight's meeting. I think it's very important that we have a racial justice task force, and I agree with all of the wonderful things that have been said. And I just want to say that I support the ideas that have gone forth, and we trust that you would take these ideas and others that I'm sure will come forth into consideration. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Underwood. I'm having a little trouble reading the name on this slip. I believe it says Shasta Matthew. Is that accurate? Yes. Thank you.
My name is Shasta Matthews. I represent the youth in this area. I represent a young black girl. I represent poverty. I represent being a victim of the system. And I don't have a lot to say, but I just want to say that I really support a racial task force, not only for the people in my community, but I think that to do it at a small place like this, it would expand and it would send a message out to the entire nation potentially. So we have a really strong community, so I believe in that. And there are a lot of people of color in this room, so I love seeing that. But I want to say rest in peace to Sandra Bland. I think that her story in particular resonates, and I think that that's exactly what we're fighting here, is a system of power that oppresses a certain amount of people, and it's killing and destroying communities, so I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Are there any others who would like to speak this evening? Please give us your name, and then when you're through, if you'll fill out a slip for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I thank you for having this time for us to speak on this very important topic. We have a couple of topics going on, but I think they are all hitting home as far as the needs for this community as a whole. I don't want to waste time talking about what's going on in the country because not only are we seeing issues in the country, we're seeing it here close at home. I've worked with what people would consider challenging youth since 1997 in different capacities, Boys and Girls Club, the READY program as a social worker, and currently working with families as a therapist. Don't want to mention the name because you are funding us, and I want you guys to continue the love in that area. But I do want to speak on behalf of some of the families as well as the youth that I work with and that I see, and that I am putting myself out there even on the weekends when I'm not supposed to, but that's just in me as far as what we're supposed to do. Programs. We do not have enough programs in this community. Prior to the state budget being in disarray and non-existent, there was not enough programs to address the amount of traumas that our families and youth are facing on a daily basis. Families don't have enough money to receive the treatment or to see it through. If they're on Medicaid or what have you, and not private insurance, that's limited to even a lesser amount of sessions that they can attend. We do not have enough resources to address the mental health in this community. Those issues end up leading to incarceration at an early age, which continues when our young folks become adults. I am passionate about programs. I'm passionate about what's going on with our individuals that have served time in the prison systems. My actual father served 31 and a half years and came back to this community, and he had a place to live, which was with me, but he still had issues with getting state ID. He had issues with obtaining employment. And things of that nature. And so this is someone, again, that had a stable support system. So let alone those that are coming here with not too much support in their lives. But I am thankful for individuals like James Kilgore, thankful for Marlon Mitchell. I'm thankful for my pastor that came up earlier, Reverend Lewis, because I help make that connection with them so that they can house programs such as First Followers and also with Rebecca Ginsburg, Ripple Effect, that are addressing that population that I was just speaking of. I'm also thankful for the Champaign Coalition. If you watch the news, you saw one of the products, which is the Midnight Basketball League. You saw the efforts of Champaign, Urbana, and the U of I coming together, saying that there is a need for proactive programs. It can't be just that we are a reactive community and we're expecting to progress together. It has to be proactive. We are living in a society where our young folks are walking around discouraged before they can even become young adults for various reasons. They're discouraged in their homes. Let's face it, homes are not where they need to be. But what are we doing about it? They're discouraged in school. Most of them are sent to alternative settings. Most of them are expelled to the streets. Rand Tool is expelling kids to the streets at a very young age. And they're also discouraged in the community. So my time is running out, but I just wanted to put that on your plate that we need as many programs as possible. And it's affecting us minorities, but it's also affecting kids in rural towns as well. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you for listening.
Thank you very much. Before you leave, will you please give us your name for the record?
Dante Lotz.
Thank you very much, and fill out a slip for us. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? If not, I will close the public participation for the 23rd of July. Thank you all for coming this evening and sharing your thoughts and concerns about our Racial Justice Task Force. It's greatly appreciated. Any communications from board members? Yes, Ms. Harrison.
I just wanted to reiterate what Alderman Ammons had brought up, that on July 29th, from 1:30 to 4:30 at the Douglas Center in the library, there'll be a Pathways to Apprenticeship event. There'll be 18 business reps there from different trades to talk about how you enter into an apprenticeship program. So please feel free to share the word around, and we want to make sure it's a successful event. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements? During the meeting, we'll be passing around, if you would like a group picture of the county board members, you can sign up for that, and signing up for the reading at the, upcoming board meetings. We have just one presentation this evening, and it has to do with Head Start. Kathleen is here, and we'll turn it over to her for her presentation. Thank you for coming, Kathleen.
I enjoy talking about our program. I think you know that. Now let's just see if I can make everything work.
If you have problems, just let us know.
All righty. I have distributed to all of the board members what I'm going to be presenting. Not that, hi Lloyd, not that the print on what you have before you is all that much more helpful, but maybe you can take it home and get that magnifying glass out. The first thing that I do want to do is satisfy a requirement that we have recently come with a new performance standard in regard to the eligibility of children coming into our program, of families of approving their eligibility. We are newly required to provide training to governing body in regard to the changes that were recently made, and then we've always provided training to our staff as changes came up in policies or procedures, but this is a new requirement for providing training to the governing body. So you have you do not have this piece of paper, and I forgot to make copies of this for you, I'm sorry, but in regard to policies and procedures and the processes for determining eligibility, a program must keep eligibility records for each participant and must include copies of any documents, including declarations, which are deemed necessary to verify eligibility. This was a change to retain the documentation. Previously, we could record the documents that we used, but return those without keeping copies ourselves. Staff must conduct either an in-person or, when justified, for instance, when a family might live outside the county but is moving here, must conduct an in-person or telephone interview with the family. Previously, interviews were not required. And here's the specific on training that we must provide governing body and our Head Start Policy Council training within 100 days of March 12, 2015, which was the issue date for these regulations. And previously, training was not required to our governing bodies.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Kathleen, Will that include RPC council and the county board, or just the RPC council?
Because we actually have we have reporting requirements to both the county level and the RPC level.
It's both.
If you're going to join us at RPC meeting, this will be at their September meeting.
So just RPC, not county board?
I'm here before the county
No, I'm
board.
talking about the training.
This is the training.
Oh.
Yes. This, in fact, is the training.
Well, I hope I pass.
And so then it does make clear that staff must be provided the training on these updated standards. And as I said, we've always kept staff up to date on any changes. And then in regard to policies and procedures, we must make clear in our staff policies, procedures, and in our policies and procedures regarding the acceptance of families into the program, any consequences for staff or families who intentionally violate federal or program eligibility determination regulations and so in addition to our ongoing monitoring and disciplinary processes, we've made changes to the job descriptions for the staff that have these responsibilities to make it clear in the job description that there will be such consequences. And we're seeking clarification as to what consequences we can implement for families, given there's also a very strong effort on all of our parts to keep families in the program. So I just wanted to, we were seeking clarification on what appropriate consequences there could be for families. And again, I'm sorry I didn't make copies for you. I do have a website, and this will be part of your record, and so I can make it available to you individually, or it will be part of your record, and you can access the website for a webinar and have more in-depth information as you wish. So that's the training I've provided to you, and that was the dull part of the presentation, I hope, at the very least. And now I want to talk to you about outcomes for our children. And you do have these materials before you. And let me know, let me know, what was the first report? What's the title of the first report? All right, kindergarten entry children. Yes. And, okay, I'm supposed to be able to make this small enough so it can be seen on the screen by everyone. But can anybody help me make it smaller? Can anybody? Bottom right hand. Oh, there it is. I see it. It's the slidey thing. Okay, got it. All right. So again, it's going to be so small you can't actually tell what it's talking about, but you can see there's lots of different colored bars up there. And the first section of bars, that's our entry level at the beginning of the school year, which is most often the first Tuesday after Labor Day. And then the second set of bars reflects the progress that we've noted for children in October, November, as we go through the process of assessing their development from the beginning of the school year until this point. And then the third set of bars is the April checkpoint, and that is for approximately half our children in the Head Start age. This is close to the end of the school year for them. So again, you may or may not be able to read what's in front of you, and I know you can't read what's up on the screen, but you can see just by virtue of looking, comparing the colors as we go across the school year, that children have made progress in every area that we are measuring in the major category of the domain. So social emotional domain, gross motor domain, fine motor, language, cognitive, literacy, and math. Now our goal for all children is that they will achieve 90% of the expectation of readiness for kindergarten prior to leaving our program. And we see here, I can see it, that we did not meet that goal, and that's our self-imposed goal for social emotional development, for language development, and for math. And every year, as we analyze our results, we determine what training can we provide to staff, what resources can we provide to staff that will promote greater gains for the children. I'll also tell you that across the state and actually across the nation, math is one of the lower areas for most programs. And so these aren't necessarily surprising results, but again, our goal is that at least 90% achievement. And then, in fact, for gross motor and fine motor and let's see what's lavender here, literacy and cognitive development, our children are at least 90% or much higher, 96% in a couple of those domains. So that's the children that are heading out for kindergarten.
Pardon the interruption, but since these are going to be the same domains for each of the subsequent graphs, can you briefly go over what does it mean for social emotional, for example, and what does it mean to have a 56% jump to an 85%? That seems really good, even though you didn't hit your metric. I'm curious what it's actually measuring, and what can we do to prepare our kindergartners to even have a higher level before they even start?
Each of these domains have a number of indicators, perhaps even 15 indicators that we are observing for the children's development. In the social emotional domain, it's kind of those things that you want children to be able to take turns, to let the adults in the room know that I want to play with something that's not immediately available, that a child is able to be patient and wait in line, is able to sit for story time. So those kinds of things that would make a child, that would provide successful experiences in our own classrooms, but as well as in kindergarten. Social emotional also has to do with the ability to express feelings. So rather than use for a child heading for kindergarten, we want children to use their words. And rather than hitting or stomping or kicking or throwing, we want children to be able to express themselves. I didn't like it when you did this. I want to take a turn. And so therefore work out their own, if you will, conflicts or things that they want to happen differently in the course of their school day. Gross motor, I think you're probably could think of right off the top of your head. Are children able to run, kick, throw a ball, do other things that have to do with those large muscles? And then fine motor, I think you can probably figure that, which is, yes, can we hold writing instruments? Are we able to mount blocks one above the other? Are we able to do all of those things that would involve hand and hand-eye coordination? Then language development is, as you would expect, vocabulary, able to use words in a rather lengthy sentence by the time we have children entering into kindergarten. We also want to determine how much word recognition, because we do find that our kindergartners are reading a good number of words. Kindergarten entry children are reading a good number of words as they leave us for kindergarten. Their own name, their friends' names, their mom and dad's names. We label everything in the classroom so that they can recognize letters and even read some simple books for themselves. They're also writing themselves. Between writing and journaling and drawing pictures in their journals. So those activities for language development. Cognitive development is that overall function of being able to problem solve, being able to make choices, being able to prioritize, if you will, what needs to come first in a sequence of steps to accomplish whatever the child is intending to do. How do you put together a puzzle? You may need to move the puzzle piece around in order to fit it into the exact spot it belongs. So cognitive skills are those thinking skills, those higher functioning skills that lead to so many of the other domains. Literacy, of course, is the very specific thing in regard to letters, words, and absolutely reading, of course, but it's using reading and writing for a purpose as well. And then math, as we all know, some of the basic concepts of math, it's not necessarily how high can you count, but do you recognize that there are certain aspects of counting, assigning a one-to-one correspondence for each number that you are counting for, each of the items that you're counting. And some simple calculations. Yes, most of the children can do some addition and even some subtraction prior to leaving for kindergarten. So then what your question in regard to how do we go from 56% in the social emotional domain or any of these domains from the beginning of the school year through the end of the school year. And we have a curriculum. We use creative curriculum, and that we also have in our software for child assessment, the child assessment software will help prompt teachers once they feed in the information of what a child is able to do now. The curriculum, the software will feed back to them ideas for lesson planning. And it's through lesson planning and individualizing for each of the children then that the teachers create the learning centers and what's in the learning centers in their classroom, as well as the specific things to ensure that for each child, a child who needs a particular experience in the classroom is getting that particular experience to be able to grow in any one of the domains that where we want to support specific growth. So that was a lot. I don't know if it moved you along any in understanding. It is, of course, because we want to reflect children's achievements, we do ensure that our teachers are trained every year on the assessment system and that they are making ongoing entries in the assessment system. This assessment system is not a testing situation. It is observing children as they go through the course of the day's activities and documenting any of the specific things in the domains in these various indicators for each domain. So, all right, so any other questions in regard to our kindergarten entry children? All right, so keep that in mind, and I'll just go through now our returning children. And the returning children are those children, I didn't describe this for the kindergarten entry. What we look at it for kindergarten entry, that report is covering children who were with us from the beginning of the school year through the end of the school year. We have a lot of turnover in the course of the year. And those children, it's very difficult to throw them into these comparisons because we want to look at apples to apples. So new children who've been in the program for only 3 or 4 months, it doesn't make sense for us to compare them with a child who has been in the program since the beginning of the school year. So we separate out, and I've brought you only very few of our reports because we look at these every which way that we can in order to be able to best understand what's going on in our program for our children. So the next report is on returning children. And as you can see, for the most part, returning children are going to start the school year with higher levels of achievement. And there's not as much difference in the course of the school year as they continue to develop. And I just wanted to point out to you, and many of what we call returning children are actually the children that are, it's a misnomer, I guess, to say returning, because we have half of our Head Start children, 3 to 5-year-old children, are in our program year-round. And all we're saying is these are the children that re-enrolled for this year. These are the children that are continuing with us for another year, and it's a year-round enrollment. And so, as I said, and this documents absolutely, which is just a very common sense understanding, children who are in programming more are going to show greater achievement. So, as I said, I just wanted to throw that into you, in for you. Okay. Now we're going to talk about early Head Start children. So our overall graph, is that your next one? Is that returning children, or is your next early Head Start? Okay, early Head Start Gold. And so the early Head Start is our program for children from birth to age 3, as well as pregnant moms, but we don't have pregnant moms on these charts. And, whoops, sorry, I messed that up. What did I do? As you can see, we're talking about the same domains. Now, of course, we don't have the same expectations for children who are birthed to age 3. We don't have the same expectations of an infant as we do of a 2-year-old. But we do actually, on this report, put those children birthed to age 3 all in one report. And we have many other reports where we look at just by the age group. And as you can see then, we have children starting with at the beginning of the school year, and that for all of the domains, children did make progress, but there are some of the domains which don't show much progress because they started so high. Early Head Start is also a year-round program, and all of the children, except for 2 classrooms, are with us for 10 hours a day. And again, I think that shows the effect of the more service, the greater the outcome. You might wonder, well, what in the world can you do for math for early Head Start age children? A baby, what can you do for math? Well, you can read a book, and if you have young children in your own home or grandchildren or some other young children you encounter, their books are very often, here's 1 duck, here's 2 ducks, here's 3 ducks, here's 4 ducks. Primarily, we are introducing number ideas and words to infants and toddlers. Infants and toddlers, we can absolutely continue to talk about, you have 2 cars. You have a car in this hand and you have a car in your other hand. You have 2 hands. You have 2 feet. And so continue that every way we can in order to bring that child along on understanding what does 2 mean. And so that's an example of math for infants and toddlers. All right. Please stop me if you have any questions along the way. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep moving. So, all right. So now that's our child outcomes. I also want to show you a report for health and disabilities. And so I have an actual bar chart that does show you up-to-date immunizations. If you don't know specifically, Head Start has to meet the requirement to provide health services, ensure that children have their health services, which means physical exams, immunizations, vision and hearing screening, nutrition screening, let me think, and address any, dental, and address any concerns that we find. as we do those screenings. And you can read on your document there that 94% of the Head Start children were complete or up to date for immunizations as of the end of June. 91% of the children were complete for medical screenings. And then we also are tracking the percentage of children who are overweight or obese, addressing a national initiative for reducing overweight or obesity for our nation. And so you can see the statistics that we are to date improving as we've been tracking this since 2011-2012 school year. And then in regard to our dental services, 94% of the Head Start children have had their dental exams and preventive care. And absolutely, year after year, we have had 100% follow-up for any dental caries or other dental restorative care that the children need. And that is primarily because we have such a great partnership with Smile Healthy. Then I'll move you on to the Early Head Start information. Early Head Start up-to-date immunizations are 87%, 88% rounding that. And as you well know, you may know if you've had little ones or have family members with little ones, in the first year, children get a lot of immunizations. And so it is difficult for us to keep up with those. And so our number is a little bit lower there. The same for the next item, 68% of the Early Head Start children are up to date for medical screenings. And that is another, because of the frequency. In the first few months of life, children are going monthly to their well child checks. It starts extending to longer and longer periods of time as they approach the age 3. And then again, for our Early Head Start children, 94% in rounding of our children have had their exams or screenings, and then 96% have had their preventive care. And again, I know from our reports every year that we achieve 100% on follow-up care in the dental area. We are required to serve at least 10% of our enrollment must be made up of children who have a disability, and I just want to document to you that we have our 10% for the school year 2014-2015. So those are all the things that are related to child health and disabilities. Now I want to run through a few things with you on our family services so that you get an idea of the kinds of families we have in our program. And so the first column that you see is the year that ended August 31st, 2014. And then we also compare the last 2 months of the report that we are submitting. And this was the June report, so on this report is May and June. So you can see that actually this year, we're going to have a more cumulative enrollment than last year. Now, one might think, oh, the more families, the better, but in fact, it is the opposite. What we want is for every family to stay in the program the entire year, and our funded enrollment is 576. So you can see we have 100 families more that came through the program because families did not stay the entire year. And there's a number of reasons for that, primarily that families move out of the county. And so you can see how many two-parent families do we have, how many single-parent families we have, and of course those numbers are going to be higher this year than in 2014 because we have more families come through the program. Then we have some employment information, and what I want to summarize in regard to the employment information as well as the job training or school information is that approximately 85% or so of our families are working or going to school. which means even our half-day sessions, 3.5 hours, are serving childcare needs for a lot of our families. We do have 10-hour classrooms for those who are working 30 hours or going to school 30 hours a week. But even those part-day rooms serve some childcare need for families. And then you have the number on families who have entered the program because they're on some form of assistance, and the number of homeless families, and then the number of children in our program who are in foster care or under the services of the child welfare system, or DCFS. So that is the makeup of the families in our program in a very quick review of some of those pieces of demographic information. That's my presentation. Thank you for your patience, and I encourage you to come visit us. Yes?
Obviously, I appreciate the program, and I think it does a great job. And maybe you can't answer these questions. I know that federal funding was cut a couple years ago. I think it's back to where it was. And these are federal programs that are, for the most part, a pass-through. Maybe there's other funding. Maybe you can tell me what other funding there is. And obviously, the kids can be part of these programs. It's helpful if they're more prepared for school and do better when they get to school. So how many kids are not or should be eligible but can't be part of the program because there's not enough funding?
Across the nation, Head Start, which is the 3 to 5-year-old program and has been in place the longest, the 3 to 5-year-old program was the initial, it originated for 3 to 5-year-olds. Across the nation, we're serving probably maybe 60%. So specifically in Champaign County, I can't tell you that specific information off the top of my head. We do a community assessment every 3 years, and at that point, I would be able to tell you. But I can tell you that every year that the federal government has announced an expansion opportunity, we have been able to document that we need expansion. And for all but one of those grants, we have been successful in growing our program. Small pieces at a time sometimes, but we have been successful because we can document the need. But it is a national competition every year. I mean, every year that they're offered, the expansion is offered. Expansion is not offered every year. So, and we do put together a number of pieces of money in order to provide the quality program that we have here in Champaign County. We use State Board of Education money so that we can put a certified teacher in 11 of our Head Start rooms. We have children in 10-hour classrooms, and we're allowed to combine Head Start money and charge for the child care length of day, and we receive, when the state pays us, we are receiving child care funding from the state as the parents are paying a co-payment based on their family size and income. And that money allows us to have that 10-hour day, as well as put a third person in many of our other classrooms.
So is the state holding up the federal funds for Head Start?
The federal funds for the Head Start and Early Head Start do not go through the state. What we have had difficulty with in times past is the money from the State Board of Education. And in years past, that's been delayed even up to 9 months. That was during the time that other state agencies, that the payments from those agencies to the service providers were being held up. And I know a number of, in this community, mental health programs had to close, other types of programs for human services had to close. We are going to, I would think that you would be aware of the issue related to the child care assistance program that is administered by the state. And as of July 1st, the eligibility level for that program dropped to 50% of poverty, dropped from, so that means for a family of 4 that the family has an income of $12,000 a year. And families who have an income of $12,000 a year are not working full-time if they are being paid legally, the legal minimum wage. And if you calculate it back, that's about 20 hours a week. Well, the other twister on that system is, in order to get payment for a full day of childcare, to be subsidized for a full day of childcare, the family has to be working at least 30 hours or going to school and working for at least 30 hours a week. So this is going to push a lot of families off the program. Oh, let me say it differently. That was inaccurate. This is for new applications as of July 1st. Anyone who's currently on the program and can keep up their eligibility during the redetermination process, which happens every 6 months, then they stay on the program as they are now. But if they lose eligibility or they're a new family applying for child care assistance, they will not be able to get on the program because of the low eligibility rule at this point. So that will have an effect on our program at some point. So you can see I like to talk about our program. So again, I invite you to our centers. Please come see me over in Pod 100. And we have you may know, we have a center here in Urbana. We have a center in Champaign. We have a center in Rantoul. And we serve Champaign and Urbana children at our Savoy location because it's a big enough building that we have the ability to serve 165 children in that building, morning and afternoon sessions and 6-hour sessions. So, all right, thank you so much. I enjoy being here.
Kathleen, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation for everybody to come and visit your program and maybe discuss some of these frustrating legislative complexities you just told us about. A motion to approve both sets of minutes in the packet.
So moved.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear who moved. Mr. Shore, and second came from? Mr. Carter, thank you very much. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, I do have one correction. It's on, I believe, page 14. It's an addition correction. And page 14, at the top, the second set of nays, that number should be 2. It says Mr. Weibel and Mr. Harkey. Okay, so if we could get that correction. Any other corrections? All those in favor of approving the 2 sets of minutes, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right, that was unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9288, authorizing payment of claims.
Mr. Esri, a second. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9289, authorizing purchases not following the purchasing policy.
A second, please. Ms. Bergson, any questions or comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Go ahead, Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Without objection, I would propose to move the Animal Control Services contracts in omnibus fashion. Therefore, I would move adoption of resolution number 9290, Animal Control Services and Impound Services with the Village of Philo, Resolution 9291 for animal impoundment services with the Village of Rantoul. Resolution number 9292 for animal impoundment services with the Village of Fisher. Resolution 9293 authorizing animal impoundment services with the Village of Mahomet. Resolution number 9294 for animal impoundment services with the Village of Savoy. Resolution number 9295 for animal control services and impoundment services with the Village of Gifford. Resolution number 9297 authorizing intergovernmental agreements for animal control services and impoundment services with the Village of Longview. And finally, resolution number 9298, intergovernmental agreement for animal control services and impoundment services with the Village of Sydney.
Okay, everybody's so anxious. Mr. Rosales, I'll take your second. Any comments or questions on these resolutions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Again, unanimous. Carry on, Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move adoption of resolution number 9296, authorizing budget amendment 15-30, increased appropriations of $25,000, increased revenue of $25,000 to the Regional Planning Commission to accommodate new Illinois Department of Human Services Juvenile Justice Grant to provide for establishment of a local juvenile justice council.
Mr. Shura, second.
And I would note that this requires a roll call.
And 15 votes, yes. Any comments or questions? All those in favors? Roll call, sorry, and I just said it, right?
Kibler,
Yes.
Maxwell. McGuire. Michaels. Rosales.
Yes.
Schrader. Schwartz. Shore. Weibel. Alex. Anderson. Bergson. Carter. Esri.
Yes.
Harper. Harrison. Hartke.
Yes.
Jay. Petrie.
Yes, a unanimous vote. Next, Mr. Alex.
Thank you. I'd move adoption of resolution number 9300, authorizing budget transfer 15-2, total amount of $60,000 from the contingent line item to architect services and consulting services for architectural and web development work required under the settlement agreement with the Department of Justice for ADA compliance.
Second from Mr. Kibler.
And I would note that although this is a budget transfer, this also requires 15 votes because it involves moving money from the contingency line.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, clerk, call the roll, please.
Kibler.
Yes.
Maxwell. McGuire. Michaels. Rosales.
Yes.
Schrader. Schwartz. Shore. Weibel. Alex. Anderson. Bergson. Carter. Esri.
Yes.
Harper. Harrison. Hartke.
Yes.
Jay. Petrie.
Yes. Next, Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9299, authorizing budget amendment 15-31, increased appropriations of $125,828, increased revenue of $120,116 to cover the cost of the facilities condition assessment to be completed by Bailey Edward pursuant to the contract approved by the County Board on June 18, 2015.
Thank you. A second, please. Was that Mr. Carter? Yes, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, say a roll call. What's wrong with me?
Kibler. Maxwell. McGuire. Michaels. Rosales.
Yes.
Schrader. Schwartz. Shore. Weibel. Alex. Anderson. Bergson. Carter. Esri.
Yes.
Harper. Harrison. Hartke.
Yes.
Jay. Petrie.
Yes, both items 12 and 13 were unanimous vote. Next, item 14.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9304, authorizing budget amendment 15-32, $50,000 in increased appropriations with $50,000 in offsetting revenue to the Regional Planning Commission and receipt of a grant for a pilot program in Champaign County in partnership with IDOT to gather bicycle route data utilizing smartphones.
Mr. Kibler, any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Esri.
Yes, I'm planning to vote no on this, and I just want to give them the reasons why. I realize this is a pass-through. It does not affect our county budget, but it does affect our state budget. Now, granted, $50,000 spread over the state is not much. I also realize that this $50,000, I'm sure, comes from an IDOT line item that can't be used other places. It's meant for grants. But ultimately, in this condition that our state is in, I don't believe that this is the best use of our tax dollars at this point in time. Not saying it's a bad program, but it's just something that I don't believe ultimately the state should be paying for at this point in time. So that's why I'm going to vote with no for it.
Thank you, Mr. Esri. Ms. Bergson? Microphone.
With our budget problems and also our environmental problems, I think any program that encourages people and makes it easier to use bicycles is a good way to spend our money.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bergson. Other comments or questions? Mr. Esri.
Well, I could also say the line item, I'm sure it's in grants, but ultimately I would prefer to see this spent on roads, infrastructure. The reason being, granted, there's not much bicycle traffic on state-maintained roads. I'll admit that. Two-lane roads and interstates especially, you don't see bicyclists ride on. But quick example, between Urbana and St. Joe, 150 was shut down earlier this year. I live on basically Windsor Road Extended, and there's no doubt that my traffic on that road increased, and there's plenty of bicycle traffic on that road too. So having good roads, state roads that in and of themselves may not see a particularly large amount of bicycle traffic, having those roads be in good condition helps the bicyclists on the other roads. It helps keep traffic off of those other roads and on the main roads, and the lesser traveled roads are in better shape or better utilized by the bicyclists by having less traffic on them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Esri. Any other comments or questions? All right, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Kibler?
Yes.
Maxwell? Yes. McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader? Yes. Schwartz? Yes. Shore? Yes. Weibel? Yes. Alex? Yes. Anderson? No. Bergson? Yes. Carter? Yes. Esri?
No.
Harper? No. Harrison? Hartke?
Yes.
Jay? Yes. Petrie?
Yes, the vote is 16 yes, 3 no. All right, number 15, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9305, authorizing budget amendment 15-33, increased appropriations of $48,000, offsetting revenue of $48,000, receipt of a grant to the Regional Planning Commission to provide assistance to individuals who are eligible and potentially eligible to receive Medicare waivered services for persons with developmental disabilities based on a pre-admission screening assessment.
Mr. Kibler, thank you for the second.
And I hope nobody asks me what that means.
Okay, I won't ask that question.
It's a grant to the Regional Planning Commission.
Would the clerk call the roll then, please?
Kibler?
Yes.
Maxwell? Yes. McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader? Yes. Schwartz? Shore? Yes. Weibel? Yes. Alex? Yes. Anderson? Yes. Bergson? Yes. Carter? Yes. Esri?
Yes.
Harper? Yes. Harrison? Yes. Hartke?
Yes.
Jay? Yes. Petrie?
Yes, a unanimous vote for item 15. Your last item, number 16. No, it isn't. You have an addendum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of resolution number 9301, authorizing the cancellation of the appropriate certificate of purchase on a mobile home, permanent parcel number 03-002-0099.
Mr. Herbert, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Another unanimous vote. All right, item 17.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Finally, I move adoption of Resolution Number 9306, amending Resolution Number 9225, establishing the budget process for fiscal year 2016. And if this is seconded, I would ask to speak to this, please.
Mr. Shore, thank you. Yes, please speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make the board aware of this. As a result of the issues we had with the budget amendment requested by the Mental Health Board and other issues going into the budget for both the Mental Health Board and the Developmental Disabilities Board, the Chair and the County Administrator and I have arranged with the Developmental Disabilities Board and the Mental Health Board to have a joint meeting of the County Board, the Mental Health Board, and the Developmental Disabilities Board. This will be the opportunity at which the budget for those two boards will be presented. Those budgets would normally be presented on the first night of the legislative budget hearings, which is on Monday, the 24th. We will still have that hearing on the 24th, but these two budget items are going to be moved up to be on this meeting on the 18th and will not be discussed on the 24th. I feel this is an opportunity to get the three boards in the same room, talk through some of these questions about priorities and budgetary issues, and hopefully come up with a solution that's amenable to all three boards. So I encourage everybody to be here if you can.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Alex? All right, all those in favor of this calendar change indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you very much, Mr. Alex. Mr. Esri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two map amendments before us tonight. The first one, 12B1. I move adoption of ordinance number 965, amending the zoning map in zoning case 799-AM-15 to change the zoning district designation from the AG1, Ag 1 agricultural zoning district to the AG2, Ag 2 agricultural zoning district in order to operate the proposed Hudson Farm Weddings and Events LLC as a special use authorized by the Zoning Board of Appeals in related zoning case 800-S-15 on a 3.67 acre tract in Urbana Township in the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 25 of Township 19, Range 9 East of the third principal meridian and commonly known as the farmstead located at 1341 County Road 1800 East, Urbana.
A second for this, please. Second. Mr. Harper, thank you. Mr. Ezra, you'd like to do some explanations, and I see Mr. Hall is patiently waiting for this time of the agenda.
Yeah, just some notes here. The ZBA voted unanimously to recommend approval of this proposed rezoning at their June 25th, 2015 meeting. This property is the Hudson Family Farmstead that is currently the home of petitioner Joyce Hudson and her husband Cecil Hudson. This zoning map amendment is intended to provide for the Hudson Farm Weddings and Events LLC as a special use and related, it was unanimously approved. 26 neighbors signed a petition in support of the proposed special use, and no one spoke against the special use or the rezoning at the public hearing. ZBA found that the rezoning achieved or conformed to all relevant goals, objectives, and policies of the Champaign County LRMP. One special condition of approval regarding the right to farm on adjacent land was recommended in this case. The memo also contains all the special conditions for the special use case. This property is not located within 1.5 miles of any municipality, and there's no township plan commission, and would also move for a roll call to record the affirmative votes required to approve the zoning map amendment.
All right, thank you for the second, Mr. Kubler. Any questions or comments either from Mr. Esri or Mr. Hall? All right, then will the clerk call the roll, please?
Kibler?
Yes.
Maxwell? Yes. McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Schwartz? Shore? Weibel? Alex? Anderson? Bergson? Carter? Esri?
Yes.
Harper? Harrison? Hartke? Jay? Petrie?
Yes, a unanimous vote. The second item, Mr. Esri?
Yes, thank you. B2, I move adoption of ordinance number 966, amending the zoning map in zoning case 804-AM-15 to change the zoning district designation from the I-1 Industrial 1 Light Industry and Industry Zoning District to the B4 General Business Zoning District in order to operate a proposed diesel truck maintenance facility with truck sales on a 6-acre tract and part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 24, Township 20 North, Range 8 East in Hensley Township, and commonly known as the Geyer Roofing Facility located at 309 West Hensley Road, Champaign.
Mr. J, thank you for the second. Mr. Esri, you have some explanations for us.
Have a few notes here too. On this case, the ZBA voted unanimously to recommend approval of this proposed rezoning at their June 25th meeting. The property is, as stated, is the Geyer Roofing Facility presently. Geyer Roofing will relocate to a different property should this pass, and the proposed diesel truck maintenance facility with truck sales moves in. No one spoke against the proposed special use or the rezoning at the public hearing. ZBA again found that the rezoning achieved or conformed to all relevant goals, objectives, and policies of the Champaign County LRMP. A special condition of approval regarding the right to farm on adjacent land was recommended in this case, as well as a special condition regarding the septic system capacity and the requirement for a change of use permit. Again, this property is not located within 1.5 miles of any municipality, and no comments are expected, and I assume none received from Hensley Township, and would again ask for a roll call to record the affirmative votes needed.
All right. Again, Mr. Kibler, thank you. Any questions or comments either for Mr. Esri or Mr. Hall? Mr. J.
Yes, Madam Chairman, thank you. I think that it should be noted that this use is really going to benefit the whole county because we're putting perhaps, hopefully for them, a tax-generating business in there. And we're not taking any agricultural ground out of production. And I would like to thank the ZBA for this right to farm, including that in the, and Mr. Hall for including that. I think that's important because we don't know what's going to happen out there in the future, and we'd still like to farm what's around it. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alex.
Yeah, I'd agree with Mr. J. I think this is an ideal location for this type of a facility. It's adjacent to the Market Street interchange on Interstate 57. This is a building that's been through a couple of changes of ownership already, and it'd be nice to get something that's going to be in there for the long term.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, clerk, another roll call, please.
Kibler? Yes. Maxwell? Yes. McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Schwartz? Shore? Yes. Weibel? Yes. Alex? Yes. Anderson? Yes. Bergson? Yes. Carter? Yes. Esri?
Yes.
Harper? Yes. Harrison? Yes. Hartke? Yes. Jay? Yes. Petrie?
Yes, another unanimous vote. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Esri. Highway and Transportation, Mr. Carter.
Madam Chair, how we have one item, adoption of resolution number 9303, awarding contract section 5-29018-00-BR, and I so move. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harkey and Mr. Carter. Any questions or comments? All right, if not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right, another unanimous vote. And then last one is labor. Mr. Harkey?
Madam Chair, I would move adoption of resolution number 9304, approving the agreement between the Champaign County Board, the Sheriff, and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Corrections Division for December 1, 2014 through December 31st, 2016, and so move.
Mr. Harper, thank you for the second. Any questions or comments? All right. Mr. J, yes.
Very briefly, these contracts that we keep drawing up become more and more lengthy and cumbersome, and it's hard for an old man like me to understand. And it looks like to me we could do it a lot simpler with a lot less lingo.
Ms. Busey, do you have a comment or two on that?
There's just a correction. The resolution number is actually 9302.
I thank the clerk for that correction. Mr. Alex.
And Deb, following up to what Mr. Jay said, a summary of the terms, a summary of how we got here would be useful. Can you give us a 10-second one? For those who aren't on the Labor Committee?
This actually started as a wage reopener for fiscal year 2015, and throughout the process of negotiation, it was determined that it would be beneficial for both parties if we came to an agreement on an economic package, which would include not just wages but health insurance. Wages was all that was required to be negotiated, and that we do it for a 2-year term, and also acknowledging one 13-month year within that 2-year term so that they're on cycle with the calendar year contracts moving forward. And Mr. J, I understand your comment, but there was no language added to this contract. Other than wages and health insurance, all of the language in this contract was in the preceding contract as well. Maybe.
I think you're just getting older, Mr. J.
Okay. Any other questions for our 3 experts sitting around the table? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, this is wonderful. It's another unanimous vote. That's excellent. Under other business, any other business? Miss Busey.
Somebody put $12 of cash in the envelope for their picture tonight, but didn't mark off their name. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, for the record, since Mr. Alex mentioned this when I was reading off the calendar, a reminder that you unanimously changed the August calendar to include the 18th of August for that joint budget hearing with County Board, Mental Health Board, and Developmental Disabilities Board. All right, a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Have a good evening, everyone.